And I want to know how the practice went for you last week, particularly understanding who my mother is. And we understand that this is a skillful means, that it's probably true that throughout all time up until now, all of you have been my kind mother in some life or not. But if a person didn't embrace the notion of rebirth linking consciousness, it does not matter, because mind is chief. And we see and understand the world, the structure of appearances, through the mind. So if I were to perceive or consider that all of you have been my mother at one time or another, how would I relate to you when I first see you? The first thing is that you wouldn't seem like a stranger. The second is I would be circumspect in how I spoke to you, and the great aspirations and wishes that I have for you, and also how I offer myself or give myself away for you. And so this is a practice that works at sweetening the mind, and that tears down sectarianism and tribalism and these thoughts of self and other. And this has to become a practice. It's not something you can just read and like, I got it and I feel that way about all y'all. No, it's something that you have to actually practice. You have to practice doing. Nobody has to know you're doing it. You don't have to tell anybody that you're doing it. But the proof is in the pudding, the Buddha said. You know, he said, when you know for yourself that when I put this into practice, you know, that it changes me. It changes my heart. It changes my mind. It changes the way I relate to the outside world. He said, then that teaching you can hold on to. And it doesn't mean whether he said it, because he only talked a little bit. I mean, in his time, he said, he scooped up a handful of leaves one time. He said, what do you think, O monks? Which has more leaves, the leaves in the forest or the leaves in my hand? And they said, well, the leaves in the forest. He said, yes, this is what I've taught you. That's what I know. So there's a whole lot that we will never get from the Buddha or any other master or sage. And so we have to go with what little bit we have. But the wonderful thing is that this is not just a way that only the Buddha could attain. He said that we all can. So when I look, I should see the Buddha in you. I should at least be open to hear something you have to say, and not thinking, well, I've been studying longer than her. She doesn't even practice. You know that behavior I saw over there, just taking one little snapshot of one person's life and then making that your opinion of them without knowing all the other aspects of them. And he says that's why we can't go on what we see, because our seeing is faulty, because we only catch little glimpses. We can't go on what we hear, especially what we hear somebody else say, because if I started something right here, by the time it got to the back of the room, it would be different. So he says you can't rely on that. He said, but there is a way of purifying the mind and purifying the heart that will open you up to the ever-present wisdom. That's what this is about. You know, getting open to the ever-present wisdom. But he said, I can't tell you about that. That has to be directly experienced, directly apprehended, directly realized. And so now, you know, we can do some Dharma talking, but it's more about embodying the Dharma. Better to take a little bit and do that really well than to get a whole lot and do nothing with it, because then we don't change. And we also don't become a force to be reckoned with when there are troubles in the world and they come towards us. We can hold up a standard against them. And so we're living in a very difficult time right now. But I believe that even though there may be more not so good people as they are good people, I believe that the power of goodness is greater than the power of evil. Now, that's what I believe. You have to decide. That's what my experience has taught me. And so, therefore, I'm always looking for my proved weapons, what I can rely on to sustain me, to get me over, to help me advance. How about you? And so your assignment for last week was to contemplate understanding who my mother is. I deeply understand that all living beings in the 6 realms of reincarnation within the three spheres of the universe have been since beginningless time my fathers and mothers in this revolving cycle of samsara. Another contemplation was bearing in mind kindness. I should deeply bear in mind that all of my parents, and that's now who? All living beings, that now exist, have since beginningless time given birth to me, reared me, loved me, became tired and ill for me. Their kindness to me is as heavy as a mountain. I should bear in mind their kindness. I will then regard the suffering of my parents, that is, all living beings, as my own suffering. The third one was repaying kindness. I understand that my parents have offered me everything. They are now revolving and wandering in the 6 realms of reincarnation, experiencing endless suffering. And I resolve to take action to awaken myself, enlighten myself and others, to save and liberate my parents, or all living beings, in order to repay their great kindness to me. And if you could imagine approaching someone, let's say that you have a disagreement with your mother. I mean, we all argue with our loved ones, but there's a limit beyond which we won't cross. Or if we do cross that line, we have great, great regret. And so suppose if we thought when we're coming up against someone that we don't agree with, could we find a way right then in that moment to step back just a bit, hear what they have to say? Like if I'm in control and you're out of control, then the best help that I can offer in the moment is something that soothes, that succors, that calms your sense of being out of control, your sense of being one-upped, your sense of being challenged, your sense, and the way to do that is that when someone comes at you with harsh speech, to offer back in return kind speech, to give them nothing to push against. And so these are the practices that we are working on. And it's easy to say, it's hard to do. But I can tell that you are doing it because there's such a sweetness that is emerging in the Sangha. And we're not your closest, friends. We're sort of like your near friends. So I can tell that you're using it at home and you're using it with your good friends. Sometimes it's just a matter of, he's so wrong, but would I rather be right or rather have my friend? Will I let this be a defining moment in our relationship over something that's not even that important? So there's a Zen teaching and Zen practice that encourages us to do just that in the moment. It says that whether we, that it's a holding on to our opinion, it says you can have one, you just don't have to be attached to it. It's not worth breaking friendship over. Sometimes when the words go out, they cannot be taken back. And then loving kindness at all times through the actions of my 3 karmas. I am loving and kind towards all living beings. Now, when do you need to apply loving kindness? Not when you're feeling loving and kind, not when you're with people who make you feel appreciated, but it's when you're in the presence of those that don't. That's the time. And if we do this, we will take some of the escalating viciousness out of the world, some of the escalating sense of not being honored or valued or in control, some of the escalating sense of I need to protect myself. Some of that will lighten and lessen. If people want to go somewhere and fight, and you don't, then when you go there and everybody's fighting, you also end up in a fight. And you wonder, what in the world happened? I don't know how. You catch something. There is this energy that's jumping off and this emotion. And we have a lot of fragile people in this world. We have a lot of fearful people in this world. And so any place we can go and add some calm, add some sanity, because we really are calm inside. Not because we're faking it, pretending to be calm, but because we really are. And that can come to us through these practices. And if they don't come to you through these practices, I have no problem. Find a practice that it does come through for you, because that's what's important, to really get it. Then you had to do compassion. Day and night, I constantly beseech all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to empower all living beings so that they may extricate themselves from suffering and liberate themselves. And then renouncing greed, I hold no attachment in my mind to anything that I do to benefit any living beings. I cultivate non-attachment to all of my good actions in body, speech, and mind. Thus, my good actions become natural and spontaneous as my original nature, my intrinsic nature, is good. I do not do good on purpose. I just do good because my intrinsic nature is goodness. And then when I do good, I forget about it. No thought of I am doing good. I did good. It's just the spontaneous doing, whatever the kind of offering. It's an offering of the heart. When we speak of sacrifice, and I think we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, and maybe we didn't use the word. Someone said, this feels like sacrifice, or something like that. And I looked and I said, where was the word sacrifice? But since then, I like it. Because sacrifice is really, we can change our relationship with words as our wisdom and our knowledge grows. We don't have to keep a deficient understanding of a word that was couched or wrapped in the way something was presented for us. We're always growing and always learning, right? So sacrifice involves giving something that matters to you, something of the heart, whether it's your time, whether it's your effort, whether, whatever it is. It's not just talking about money, it's talking about anything that you give with your whole heart is sacrifice, But you're giving it for something even greater than that. And that's the idea, that it's an offering for something that's even greater. So we heard about the young lady who stepped in front of her rabbi, and she didn't think about it. But he was precious to her. And just in that preciousness, she stepped, and she gave her life. And so there's a thing about sacrifice. I feel really for her, I feel no sadness and no remorse, because she gave her life for something that had its highest value to her. And so when we start to understand things in a different way, we will see even the bad things that happen. It's just like everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. Yeah, it's something like that, And so even in the midst of great sorrow and sadness and calamity and out wrongdoing, there's this story that says that Buddha looked down in hell and he saw some people in hell and he jumped down there to save them. But when he landed, hell turned into a Buddha land. And why? Because mind is chief. Wherever his mind went, that became the outpicturing of his own mind. So that's a metaphor for us really recognizing that we don't see things as they are. We just see things as we are. And the best way to not just survive in this world, but to get along wonderfully, because in this world we're going to have good and bad, is how we nurture and feed the mind that we can deal with the vicissitudes of life. It's only in that way that we kind of balance out when troubles and calamities occur. So I would, and then we did eliminating attachment in my practice as I cultivate all forms of goodness and benefit my parents. I should not become attached to any dharma. The thing about attaching to a dharma is that you can't grow. Once I say this is true, anything that comes that appears to rub up against that, well, that can't be true because I've already decided that this is true. But it's even for the Dharma, because they are different things are true in different situations. Different things are true depending on what the ultimate objective is. And so he says we can't like grasp around anything. Things are true on a certain level, on a relative level, on another level. Like that's not necessarily true. It's like if we can't fly, yet we can get in a plane and we fly. Or if we jump out of the window, the law of gravity says we'll go down. But the law of aerodynamics supersedes the law of gravity. So it doesn't mean the law of gravity is not true. It just means that there are other laws in place that impact that and can even supersede that. So we should always be open and abounding to hear and learn something new. And if it is attractive to you, then you should grasp hold to that for whatever you can squeeze out of it. But then when you finish squeezing the lemon, you don't have to hold on to it then. You just spontaneously become whatever you have imbibed, and you keep walking. That's how we stay free. That's how we become non-dogmatic. That's how we appreciate people who are on other spiritual paths or other methods that they're using to become their best. And that will be what gives us not just a tolerance for other religions and people who practice in ways that are different from us. It will give us not only a tolerance, but it will give us a deep acceptance of that. And we'll always just be looking to see how that little bit that they share with us allows us to tweak our understanding so that we come to know more. And so those were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? And I want to know who practiced any of those this week and anything that you wanted to say about it. Yes, because when we finish this, I'm sure this book is going up on somebody's bookshelf. But it is a book that we could really use throughout. I mean, I've done what is Cultivation now about 20 times in the past year. And I can truly say that it is benefiting. It's benefiting me. So it's a Dharma that I encourage. Yeah. Yes.
So I just noticed that I'm catching myself lately in those moments of judging, whether it's something I hear or something I see. Like you said, you see someone do certain thing. In those moments of judging, I'm catching myself and finding that I can say, may be free from suffering or something like that. And I think that may come from this awareness that this puts into your mind.
Yes, it does. Thank you. Yes.
It seems to break down boundaries because when I contemplate all living beings as having been my mother, then that breaks down all the boundaries of, the individuals being separate, and it makes it easier to maneuver in the world, but it's transforming my world that I'm maneuvering in. And it's almost immediately stopping unwholesome thoughts when I embody that practice. And it's, tangible, it's transformative.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah.
Just real quick, what I found, I had a real challenging relationship with my mom. So I find now when I'm sitting quietly that I almost think of myself as the mother, and I'm holding people, in my heart as if they were infants and just rocking them. And I even found myself at one point doing that to myself as a child. And it just really helps me feel connected to others in a real nurturing way.
Mm-hmm. And it's true, and I had a real challenging relationship with my mother, too. But I have found while doing this practice, sometimes I'm just thinking, and I think about her fondly, because there was no time that everything was all bad. We just hold on to the all bad, because that's our propensity. But now I'm recalling just these little moments here and there. And actually they're beginning to stack up for me better than the all bad that I thought. And then I just wondered where in Samsara she could be right now. I have an idea. And, and I felt compassion for her if we, if we reap what we sow, then I had, great compassion of where she may be suffering, and so I stop and I offer merit. And offering merit is not like we can really give it because everyone owns their own karma, yeah? But what it does is it takes a bit of offense out of her established karma. Like a person who's done all of these things to people, right? But if the people say, you haven't done anything to me, then there's nothing that person has to, make recompense for. And so I've been gradually pulling out all of the pins, the things what she didn't do or where I thought she was deficient, and then I'm saying, well, she did the best that she could do with what she had, I wish I could be as good a daughter as my daughter is to me, because I was not a really good mother. I didn't have a lot of that in me. I didn't have an example. I didn't, but my daughter's always talking about her wonderful mother. I never even hardly see her, and I never did that for my mother. I really pointed out her deficiencies, but my daughter has never pointed out mine, And so I'm offering to her now that's what I'm giving, to neutralize some of the karma. I'm taking away what there is to pay for. So just in doing it this way, and the other thing is about eliminating attachment. You said something about it was a really important point. Well, when I think of it, I'll tell you, because it's something I wanted you to notice throughout your day, when you're not being attached to your own needs, what you need, but you're really looking to see how you can help impact someone. It's like if someone is yelling at you, like, why weren't you there? Why weren't you there? I waited. I didn't know if you were coming. And you can think, wow, they're really suffering. They're suffering over me being 15 minutes late. Listen, they got all tied up in a knot, and just thinking of how that person must be suffering mentally, as opposed to just being so aware of the blowback in your face. Just recognizing what makes them act this way has to be, a deep unsettledness within themselves. And that when I'm unsettled in that way, I suffer. I'm in extreme anguish or something like that. And so just looking at people who act out and just having compassion for them, knowing that at that moment that they are really suffering. And what can I do? What can I say that won't add kindling to the fire? And if you could imagine, we're not going to change the world overnight. But I'm going to tell you something. We're not going to change them by laws either. I mean, we need to have laws, but laws are for the lawless. So if we could turn more people into compassionate people who are mindful and aware, then we wouldn't need so many laws. And laws being for the lawless means that they don't care about the law anyway. So we have to change ourselves, each one changing him or herself, and then demonstrating that, living that before someone. So and in that way being a witness to the efficacy and to the power of what you say you believe and how one can live their life. Okay, so this is our work for this whole year in transforming ourselves. We are studying from a Vajrayana text, or Mahayana Vajrayana text, and that kind of training is a little bit different than Theravada. Theravada takes you step by step and tells you the things that you have to do. Do this, and then when you got that, add this, and add this until you have a full understanding. Vajrayana takes the finished work and brings it into the path. So one meditates in a different kind of way, that I already have the Buddha nature. What would Buddha do right now? And then I shall do that. And so I think a combination of both of these ways quickly gets us to the middle place. Some is getting some instruction and putting it in place in a gradual way. The other is starting with the completed work, I am that, and asking myself what kind of mind thinks that way. Okay, so we're ready now to go to, could I get somebody to help read? Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot I got to do it. Okay. This is an oral tradition, and the transmission is given in an oral way. And I've been authorized to read it the first time, but then after that, you can do whatever you do with it, because then you will have received the transmission. The supporting conditions for putting bodhicitta into practice must be based upon right view. We contribute to living beings in their performance of good deeds, but we do not contribute or help living beings in their performance of bad deeds. We rectify their behaviors so that they perform good deeds. Thus, we do all good deeds that benefit living beings. We plan all good causes that lead to benefiting living beings. In that way, we carry out the 7 branches of the Dharma of Bodhisattva correspondence, bodhicitta. And so I'd rather you kind of listen now instead of reading. You can read it, your book later. We help living beings in their performing good deeds and help increase their good causes. We help living beings reduce their accumulation of bad karma and help them stay far away from bad causes. The 7 branches of the Dharma of Bodhisattva correspondence bodhicitta are as follows. The first branch is self and others are equal bodhicitta. The second branch is exchange between self and others, bodhicitta. The third branch is benefiting others before self, bodhicitta. The fourth branch is dedicating merit, bodhicitta. The fifth branch is fearlessly protect the Dharma, bodhicitta. The sixth branch is effectively lead others to correct Dharma, bodhicitta. And the seventh branch is renouncing myself to help others build good karma, bodhicitta. When practicing this cultivation, everyone should carry out for themselves, number 1, self and others are equal. When there's a conflict of interest between myself and others, I will rid myself of any hatred, antipathy, greed, and arrogance, or any disparaging mentality. I must not emphasize benefiting myself. When there is a conflict of interest between myself and others, I should treat myself and others as equals. And this is about being attached to our own views, our own opinions, or what it is we want. He says a good friend does what's hard to do and gives what's hard to give. So that a good friend thinks, why should I do what I want to do when I'm so blessed to have the companionship of this friend? Why not do what that friend wants to do? It's just sweetening and cultivating a mind of being with a friend and valuing a friend as much as we value ourselves. Exchange between self and others, bodhicitta. I want to bear the sufferings of all living beings. I give to others all of my happiness and good luck so that they may leave suffering and obtain happiness. I want to bear the suffering. When people come to me and they are suffering, I bear their suffering. I bear it in this manner. I hear what they say, and I look to see if there's some way that I can either give them some advice or give them some actual help that takes care of that, or that helps, or that points them into a direction, or lets them know that that they have a good friend who's with them in this. There was a couple that I talked to, and the husband had done something And it had been covered up for a long time, and it unraveled, and it became known, and so he got fired from his job. And he has a big, very prominent job, and and I had to talk with him and talk with his wife, and he was thinking about committing suicide, and I was thinking what would I say to him? What could I say with him? Because he was so ashamed, And so finally I told him, the shame is not that somebody found out. That's not the shame. We all do things, and we don't want people to find them out, and we don't have to weigh them and see whose is heavier or measure them and see whose is bigger. We all do things that we don't want someone to find out about. I said, but the shame that should rise up is the doing of it. And if you did that, but you don't do it anymore, it's just come to light now. Yes, there's a consequence that you might have to bear. But what you can rejoice in is the thing that I used to do. I don't do that anymore, And so in talking with this way, he decided that he could live and he could face this. I said, there's a lot you could do. You got a lot of money. You got a house that's paid for, and you're young. You got all your credentials, 2 PhDs and 2 masters and something else. I said, you can relocate and go somewhere else. You're in a small town where everybody knows your name. You have choices. Some people have no choice. I said, so, stop wallowing in your self-pity, acknowledge I did it, and now how shall I move on with my life? I said, this is what you need to be focusing on is your wife, because if I was your wife, I'd leave you, but she loves you. So right now, instead of thinking about you, you need to think about her, who did nothing, but she also bears your shame. And just talking with him and getting him out of himself. But in doing that, he found that, he can make it. He just has to bear this. But we got to stop being so fragile. We are so fragile. We can't handle anything, can't go through anything, can't tolerate anything. But we can learn that we can, even when it's hard, even when it's difficult, It's momentary, it arises, it's there for a while, and it goes on. Unless, in our mind, we just put it on automatic replay, then it stays all the time. Benefit others before self, bodhicitta. When other living beings and I are suffering, I want others to extricate themselves from their suffering before I do. When other living beings and I are happy, I want others to be happier than I am. And this is sometimes thinking, like you might think that you have a need, and then you see someone and they have a need. Like for me, I have $100,000 needs. I run into somebody, they have a $10 need. But that $10 need to them is just as important, and just as necessary for them. And it matters just as much as my $100,000 need. So I can't say, well, I can't worry about his 10 because I need 100, But that 10 is important. And when we get to this place, we stop categorizing and putting people at different levels of who's important and who's not important. So I'm looking to see if there's a way, even though I have a need, if I can take care of somebody's need who has a lesser need. Then it gives me great joy to do that, even though it depletes me more from the need that I have. But what I do believe is, I do believe in sowing and reaping. I do believe in cause and condition. So when I can do something, I do what I can do. And I'm surely looking, for at some point in time, maybe it doesn't come when I need it. Then it just didn't. But maybe it will. Who knows? But I know one thing: if I never offer, if I never help anybody, what fruit will I ever harvest? What fruit of help will I ever get back? I won't get any, you know. And so, dedicating merit, bodhicitta. I dedicate to all living beings all of the merit and accomplishments for my cultivation in the hope that they will leave suffering and attain liberation. Just offering, just a mind of giving. You see what it is? It's cultivating a mind of considering other people, being considerate, being courteous, being kind, being helpful. Yeah. And what we'll find is fulfillment. You know, as we serve others, we'll find fulfillment in life. And don't worry, we're not giving up our merit, because you can't give away what you did. You know, so that fruit's going to inure back to you. But it is certainly giving up this lovely thought, this wonderful, enlightening, lifting way, instead of looking at somebody with some kind of a criticism or remembering something they did way back, or even something they're doing right now. I have a person that he's so untruthful. My goodness, you know. So I can't trust anything that he says. So I have to hold everything with a grain of salt. No, but I don't go around thinking, wow, he's such a liar. I mean, I already know he's a liar, you know. I don't have to go around thinking, oh, he's such a liar, he's such a liar. Instead, what I do is I point out why he lies to him. I say, what happens is you get started with something, and then you get sidetracked and you go do something else, and then you think you've done that, but you haven't done it, or you didn't finish it. But that's because you lost your focus. Just stay on your focus until you completely finish something, And he's learning. He said, I feel different being. But it's just understanding how people are. And so it's in their own mind, it can be something that's really true, where I'm looking at it in an entirely different way, because I'm looking at the end result. Did you do it? Yes, no, it's not done. But they think they did it, and I'm saying, and just pointing in that way instead of calling, someone a liar. So when we're looking at and judging, that's where we get into trouble. Even when we can recognize something is not like as it should be, we don't know what's in the other person's mind, and how they view that thing and how they look at it. And sometimes they'll bring something to my attention. I say, oh, I see, I get it, And they were right, and I was wrong. And so just holding everything lightly that way and seeing how to be helpful instead of harmful makes a big difference in how we purify the heart. And the mind, the thoughts, the conceptualization, it rides in the vehicle of the heart. So when you're hard-hearted, you can say some of the best things, but it's still like a stab in the heart of the other person, because it's riding in an unpurified vessel or vehicle. Fearlessly protect the Dhamma Bodhicitta. When any evil, they call it any evil spirits or demons, harm the Buddha Dhamma. And that means that when they go against like some of the atrocities that we're seeing, you can use euphemisms all day long if you want to, but it is evil. And so when and then we talked about during the retreat, we talked about the different classifications of beings, and some beings who are fine material, some in the immaterial realms or immaterial spheres. That's why you can go to some places and you have or even like when we first came here, we had so many, hungry ghosts, but most of them are still here. They're just not rattling anybody because they're happy. And it's one reason why, we really work at maintaining peace and harmony, because they feed off of our energy. And when there's a lot of cantankerous energy, they get riled up. When they get riled up, they scare people. And so as long as we stay peaceful and courteous and helpful to one another, they imbibe that, and there's some fulfillment for the realm in which their minds are walking out or living, a karmic repercussion. And so I took snapshots one time of the kids. We had like a non-alcoholic club for them, for the, I think, 13 to 17-year-olds, and they would have raves, and they have raves, the music was going, and they were happy, and they were jumping around, and we took pictures. The pictures were full of orbs, So when I put them up against these real high, holy, spiritual places, and the pictures are full of orbs, I said, doesn't matter whether it's around something spiritual or whether it's around something secular. It's the pleasure of the people is what attracts certain classifications of beings. And in the same way that there are ones that, excuse me, that bring us joy and happiness, there are other beings who are walking out a less fortunate karma, and we are influenced also. I mean, we influence each other. Isn't it just natural then to think that all beings have a capacity to influence all other beings? Effectively lead others to correct practice. Because living beings is how we should think. Because living beings are burdened with the power of karma that has accumulated since beginningless time, because they are ignorant and have created all kinds of negative karma, there will be times when they will not repent or change their ways despite constructive exhortation. In such cases, I will use powerful rectifying Dharma methods to lead such people on the path of true Dharma and beneficial and good conduct. So it's talking about being effective. And the first way that we become effective in leading people in the right way is to go in the right way ourselves. Someone just called me last night. He sent me an email last night. And he's, see, what can I say? I just messed up a minute ago. This wasn't recorded, right?
Yeah, this is being recorded.
Okay. Well, what I'd like for this one, because I actually said something, I'd like for you to not, to just erase it. So this person called me, and they are away from home, and they're working at a business venture, and he says, I need help. I'm out here in this place, and every time I see the backside of a woman, where I'm looking, like my mind just goes into all kinds of lustful places, and I don't know what to do. And where I am, that's all you see, And so he's out in L.A. and I said, then pack up and go back home. I said, he was asking, how can I stay true to the Dharma? I said, you better figure out how to stay true to your wife. What you need to do is pack up and go back home. If you can't handle it, then this venture you're trying to do, you have to decide, is it worth your marriage? If you can't control your mind, you're not ready for it, you're just not. No harm, no foul. But don't destroy your home life. Pack up and go back home. Don't worry about the Dharma, worry about your wife at home. Then I said, and Pannavati is going to call you at 12 tomorrow. And because when I mentioned it to Deepa said, I was just thinking about him today. And I was wondering how he's doing. I said, well, I'll tell you, he sent email today, and this is it. But you have to know how to effectively lead others. And he's doing something that's a Dharma project. And he really, wants it to be a good project. And already his weaknesses, he's being directed towards his weaknesses between what comes through the eye gauge, He said, my goodness, I didn't know there were so many beautiful women, and they're all in one place. You need to pack your clothes and go home. Renouncing myself to help others build good karma, bodhicitta. When the realization of other people is higher than mine, or their ability to save living beings is better than mine, I will yield to other people so that living beings will be benefited more. At such time, without any hesitation, I yield to them. And this furthers the great undertaking of goodness. And so I always say that no, I'm never at a loss for words. But if my master walks through the door, that's it. When she's present, I don't speak. When I do speak, it's because I've gotten irritated with somebody that I feel like is wasting my time, and I'm immediately chagrined, or not immediately, after I say something. But then I'm chagrined that I spoke because she was present, you know. And so this is not, and I can say, and she acknowledges that we haven't had the same experience. So there's some things that I have more experience at, but yet there is respect for her, that even if she hasn't had that experience, I won't say I'm the one that knows, or I won't interfere, or I won't, step over her. I can tell her privately later, I can give her an idea of something she could do, or whatever, but I will never, just out of respect for the place that she holds in my life. So these are ways, of the 300 and some rules that the Buddha gave his disciples, what we call inside the gate disciples, because he had like tons and tons of disciples that were lay people, but the renunciates, the monastics, of those rules, there are only about, or maybe 50, if that many, that are really important spiritual guidelines. Most of them about don't chew with your mouth open. Don't talk while you have food in your mouth. When you lay in the bed, don't be all sprawled with your covers all off, half naked. He had to just teach them about how, just social etiquette. He had to teach them how to just have basic respect for people. And when he started with his closest circle, and these were all of the, the wealthy kids, and they had very little respect for anybody else, because sometimes wealth can do that to you if you don't have enough constraint in the home, and you don't develop a habit or a basis of respecting other people. And so he had to teach them how to just be respectful. He had to teach them how to be courteous. He had to teach them how to be kind, because they never had to be kind. They're just only surrounded by servants. They just tell people what to do all the time. And so a lot of those practices, those rules, they truly are training guidelines for how to be a certain way in the world. And so a lot of the Dharma, if you look, is really about that. We want the high, heavy stuff, like, how to get enlightened, but we don't even know how to relate to each other, or to be courteous, or, things like that. And so he helps us step by step. So he says the bodhicitta, that is the awakened heart, sometimes it's called the enlightened mind, but he says that bodhicitta, the citta, C-I-T-T-A, that we translate as mind, manos is mind, but we say citta and we still say mind, because that sounds a little more intellectual, pragmatic, and rational than saying heart. But he was talking about the heart. And this is the awakened heart, more truly correct than the enlightened mind. So bodhicitta, the awakened heart, as part of cultivation, is the source of accomplishment in the Dharma. And this is very important to know, that this is a way that must be known by heart. I will now give an example involving a Rinpoche and a Dharma master. This Rinpoche cultivated himself for more than 30 years. He received more than 1,000 esoteric Dharma initiations. He mainly practiced the great perfection Dharma Dojin of the Nyingma sect. He was able to expound the Buddha Dharma of the Tripitaka very well. However, he did not have any real Dharma powers. The other person, the Dharma master, had been a monk for more than 20 years. He strictly abided by the precepts and rules of conduct. He was well versed in the sutras, the Vinaya, which are the precepts and rules, and the commentaries. He practiced important and great dharmas of the Tibetan esoteric school of Buddhism and was the abbot of a famous temple. Like the Rinpoche, he was also famous for expounding the Dharma. However, he also was unable to manifest any actual realization. I told him that no matter what great Dharma of the esoteric school they may practice, it is all like building a tower on quicksand. Such a tower cannot be built. I told them that even if they temporarily had some success in their practice, it would quickly vanish, and I had them practice letting go of their own knowledge or habituated ways of knowing, because these are our hindrances. And I had them practice this Dharma that I have given to you, what is cultivation. And you have your 2 sets of 7. So this past week you practiced 7 contemplations. This week you have 7 actions that you are to practice. And I had them add to their practice the great perfection, Dojin, and other dharmas. And a miracle happened. During the test of his progress, the Rinpoche applied the Vajra fist, powerful thunder, true Dharma palm, and manifested great powers. Actually, realization was shown. However, the Dharma master did not manifest any capacities. He continued to practice this cultivation Dharma, and under my careful pointing out of his shortcomings, he finally understood the importance of true cultivation and how true cultivation requires devoting time and energy on actually carrying out or performing these actions through our thoughts, our speech, and in our body. He finally understood that there is no room whatsoever for any slippage or compromise in this regard. He practiced for 3 months. In a test to measure his ability to manifest realization, his powers were thoroughly exhibited. Thus, whoever can cultivate in such manner and carry out his practice according to the Dharma will be able to obtain the true Buddha Dharma. Naturally, he will develop wisdom. Naturally, wisdom will arise. He will not become involved with empty theories regarding this or that, or the 5 vidyas. Rather, he will manifest actual states of accomplishment in the true 5 vidyas. Such a person will realize the ability to apply the Buddha nature and attain the fruit of awakening and enter the stage of a bodhisattva. The practices of all Buddhist sects should comply with these rules of cultivation and one should practice bodhicitta. If you do not follow such Dharma of cultivation in its proper order, then you easily become confused and you lose your way. Such Dharma is the key to the methods of practicing correctly. And learning the methods of practicing is another matter. All beneficial effects derived from learning the Dharma are based upon cultivation. In other words, you don't really know it until you know it. When your practice is in strict conformity with the Dharma, you'll naturally realize virtue, and you will have success in reaching true states. If you do not have the correct rules concerning cultivation, the Dharma you learn becomes the Dharma based on erroneous view. If you're complying with the Dharma as stated in this discourse, the Dharma that you have learned is a good Dharma, and you will be engaged in practicing Buddha Dharma. Cultivation includes the 10 good characteristics. We know what those are about, to avoid killing living beings, and the other 9. The 4 limitless states of mind, the 4 immeasurables, and we know what that is, right? And the 6 paramitas, or the 6 paramis, they're called in Mahayana, or those are perfections. The 4 all-embracing virtues are the 4 methods that the bodhisattvas employ to approach and help living beings. Some disciples will think that they know all of the important Dharma I expounded on today on cultivation. They will therefore not carefully ponder and fully incorporate into their thinking the cultivation of which I have spoken. Rather, the wish they harbor in their hearts is to learn a great Dharma whereby they'll become a Buddha in this very lifetime. But anyone with such a mentality has only superficial knowledge, has already fallen into confusion, and has lost his way. Such a person will not learn the true Buddha Dhamma. Even if he's practicing great Dhamma, such as great perfection Dojin of the Niyama sect, or the mind within mind of the Kagyu sect, or the great perfection of wonderful wisdom of the Sakya sect, or the Kala Chakra of Vajra of the Gelug sect, a Zen meditation of the Zen sect of exoteric Buddhism, reciting a Buddha's name of the Pure Land sect, the Dhamma of consciousness only sect, or Samatha and Vipassana of the Theravada school. He will not obtain any fruits from his practice and not be able to transform his consciousness into wisdom. He will not be able to manifest any realization, the source of which is the wisdom of esoteric and exoteric Buddhism. He will not be able to exhibit any actual accomplishments in his daily life. He will only be able to manifest that which any ordinary person can. He may even be quite stupid, such that he is only able to memorize theories in books and speak of empty theories, totally incapable of putting those theories into actual practice. Such a person cannot actually do anything. And even if he can do a few things, he cannot exceed those people in the world who are experts in those things. Think about it. Does such a person embody the Buddha Dhamma? Is the wisdom derived from the Buddha Dhamma so inferior? How can anyone who has not yet developed holy wisdom and still has the consciousness of an ordinary person possess the true Dhamma to enlighten himself and others? However, if you enter into this practice according to the rules of cultivation, then you will become proficient and you will manifest accomplishments. We should therefore understand that cultivation is the foundation for learning Dhamma, the cause of liberation, and it is the source of realizing the state of holiness. Today I have spoken briefly on the subject of what cultivation is. I expounded the subject of correct practice of bodhicitta, which is a part of cultivation. I did not speak of other Dhamma. There's so much more to teach. However, if I casually discuss those other things, it would not be in accord with the rules of discipline and could easily create the negative karma of disrespect. Thus, I hope that all of you who learn the Dhamma will deeply immerse yourselves in the Tripitaka and the esoteric scriptures, or listen to my recorded discourses on the Dhamma. And if you attentively listen with all your heart, within even 10 days, you can attain a certain degree of joy, or the wonderful joy of great awakening even. If the causes and conditions mature, you will experience beneficial effects for your entire life, or even attain great accomplishment, liberation, or even Buddhahood. Now that you've learned this Dhamma of cultivation, do you want to practice it? Anyone who engages will become accomplished. Therefore, we must clearly understand something. Although you have heard what is cultivation, and you have heard the 8 fundamentals of cultivation, and the 2 sects of 7 branches based upon right view, this is called hearing. This, though you have read it, it's called reading. And if you understand the principles, that's called understanding the principles. But none of these are cultivation. It's only when you implement this Dhamma according to its content. If you begin to implement this Dhamma according to its content, that also is not called cultivation. That is called entering the process of cultivation. And if you've done your utmost to apply great compassion in accordance with this Dhamma, that is called coarse cultivation. It is still not true and correct. Why is it called coarse? It's because it has the power of the karma and the hindrances of ignorance have obstructed your full understanding. Therefore, you cannot so easily let go of selfish desire or anger or ignorance or delusion. You can't so easily let go of attachment to self. And this produces the hindrances that are based on the defilements that afflict your mind. These hindrances devour all of our right understanding. And as a result, the process of implementing these rules in the moment when we need them is difficult for practitioners. That's why it's called coarse cultivation, but thoroughly understanding the rules, not forcefully implementing them, waiting until they become a naturally arising inclination. naturally carrying out these 8 fundamentals and the 2 sets of 7 branches according to the Dhamma. That is what shall be called true cultivation. This is the path of Bodhi. Thus, every day, you should introspect upon great compassion for all living beings as my mother and the Bodhisattva correspondence, Bodhicitta. Reflect on these 2 sects, asking ourselves whether we have practiced well according to the Dhamma. And if you introspect every day upon these 2 sets, not forcing them in implementation, but arising them to allowing them to naturally arouse, that will be true cultivation, and that will be complete practice. And I have completed the Dhamma of cultivation, transmitted by His Holiness Dorje Chang Buddha III.